We're on. You want to just jump into one of these clips? Start from there?
Give me 2 seconds, because there is one thing that I just realized that I wanted to paste at the very end. Real quick. Just 2 seconds here.
Well, that's cool. I can actually find the that clip of him on Meet the Press. Ready?
In
Jules.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Oh my God! Stop it.
Okay.
It's not that big of a deal.
No, I got it. I got it. It was perfect.
All right.
Just the right amount.
All right. Well, cool.
Should I be hearing something?
No.
Oh, okay.
Dating back more than 2 centuries, and not anymore. All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines, and the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Donroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again.
Trump officials talking about the Don Roe Doctrine in the past 48 hours, that an update of the 19th century Monroe Doctrine. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, that was 1823, President Monroe, just as the Spanish Empire was crumbling and the Spanish were being kicked out of South America. They kept hold of Cuba for a while later. In 1823, the President of the United States declared America for the Americas. What he was saying there was no imperialist European powers to have boots on the ground in the Americas. Effectively, that means our backyard. Now, as recently as 2013, the then Secretary of State, John Kerry, declared that the Monroe Doctrine was dead. It's emphatically very, very much back, with the United States pivoting away from maybe Europe and Asia and the Middle East as prime foreign policy areas and moving towards a renewed emphasis on Latin America. Now, the circumstances now are very different from those of 200 years ago. The main threat that the United States are seeing, not the European powers, China, which is has the influence of China has grown and grown in Latin America. It is a major trading partner, the biggest trading partner of many of the South American countries. So it's possible that we're looking at a double game here from what the United States is doing. As we've just been hearing, fair enough, the emphasis on oil, but it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of investment in order for those oil reserves to be gettable, to be refinable, to be profitable. So that's a long-term game, perhaps. In the short-term game, a message, a powerful message has been sent to China. Latin America is North America's, the USA's sphere of influence, and we can do what we want there, and you'll just have to take it. That would seem to be part of what the United States government is trying to do.
Yeah. Did the Nuremberg trials have the asshole defense?
All right, big ups, everybody. Happy New Year.
Welcome.
Jules, before we get going, any resolutions from you?
Yeah, I'm hoping for an inherent resolve if I had to pick anything. Like
it?
the operation?
That's all.
Nah. All right. Read more books, write a book,
Write a book.
and go to Spain.
Oh, really? Spain?
Yeah, I
You
thought
know,
of it.
Meet up with your phalangist friends.
No, I'm gonna go resurrect the old CNTFAI. That's what I'm gonna do.
You know, I've actually been doing some writing for the past few months. I've been working on a story.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, for real.
a
And
novella, beginning, middle, and end.
I think that it'll probably. I'm trying to keep it as a short story because a novella, it's like not anything. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It's too big for a short story, not big enough to get to even self-publish. You know, it's like I've been trying to keep it tight. You know, but
Yeah, its book jacket was purchased at Goodwill, so it's a little stretched at the seams.
Yeah, but no, I'm not giving out any other information than that. But yeah, I've been working on it for a while. I've been got characters and plot and things happening. Yeah.
Ooh, I'm excited to
Yeah.
eventually read it, maybe, possibly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It'll be right on that shelf right behind me. And probably only
the one
there.
copy.
Right. I'm gonna have it printed up at Kinko's. It'll be spiral bound.
Yeah.
All right. Well, clearly, everybody, this has been a big week for the Empire. I mean, they are. I'm like, is it back or what? You know, people were
we're
saying,
back,
is it
baby.
like people were saying America is back when Trump got reelected, but it is definitely back now. Yeah, like as a New Year's gift to everyone in the U.S., we got a Maduro kidnapping.
It's so far back that we went back in time.
It is so far back, yes, that we went back about 180 years.
Uh-huh.
And I think this is also like I love some of these reactions. That's really what I want my focus to be for my piece of this episode, is just how people have been taking the news that, you know, when they woke up on January 3rd, they found out that the US had committed this like unprovoked military strike on the capital of Venezuela and kidnapped its president and his wife. And like then flew them on, like, no pun intended, trumped up drug charges, like all the way to New York by way of the Jerry Ford aircraft carrier, which is like, if there's a flagship, that's the flagship, because
Yeah.
it is the biggest aircraft carrier in the world. And
Well, there's approximately a third of the U.S. Navy in that region right now.
so if anybody wondered why their health insurance premiums are going up, it's because of this stuff. This is what we get in trade. We get shock and
Sounds.
awe. We
Hey,
get
but there
early
are some people who
2000s
do get
George
health
W.
insurance.
Yeah.
There are some. They live in Tel Aviv.
Yeah, right.
I mean, at least we're funding them.
Well, and the soldiers, they have socialized medicine.
Oh, and the senators.
And the senators, they have socialized medicine. And I think one more thing I want to say, before we talk about, a little bit more about Donnie hitting his stride, which is now stepping on 2 continents. I just want to say, Epstein who?
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about all the pedos.
You remember that guy?
Oh yeah.
I mean, barely.
Mission accomplished with this little distraction.
I've been talking to friends about just getting their take on things, and hearing what people's reactions are, because people are taking this in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he said, thoughts about Venezuela and what's going on there, and he said, it's just a reminder that if you have oil, you're going to get freedom, whether you like it or not.
Oh, freedom, smiles or else. I made a crack about this is a distraction from the Epstein files. I have maintained for a while that I am not convinced of the foresight and 17D chess of the people who are running governments and corporations to coordinate some kind of theatrical display specifically towards the aims of distracting from something else in public opinion. With that said, the president of Colombia did just say in a sort of public remarks that this is totally just a distraction from the Epstein files. His phrasing was incredibly hilarious. Like he really dug in the screws.
I think when we're, we should really be cautious about the hard analysis about who does what for what reason, especially when we're talking about this, this amalgamation of individuals that form the core of this administration. There are so many different motives at play, because clearly the 19th century imperialism motive is living and breathing strongly in Stephen Miller. And
Yeah.
but Marco Rubio is doing like 2000s neocon shit. And
Yeah.
because for him it's about the oil, and for Miller it's spheres of
He's doing
influence.
fat lines of 2000s neocons shit.
And for Trump, it seems like he got mad because Maduro was dancing too much.
I mean,
I'm not even joking.
That's as good of a
I'm
reason
gonna-
as any from this guy.
I'm going to read this from the New York Times. I know it's not in the script, but it popped into my head and I just read it. It is the article's titled "How Trump Fixed on Maduro Loyalist as Venezuela's New Leader." So this is good, because it's about, like, a lot of people have been asking, like, what happened to Machado, and why all of a sudden is Delcy Rodriguez, the one that they can work with in Washington. That would be Maduro's vice president. It was one dance move too many for Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro. Mr. Maduro in late December rejected an ultimatum from President Trump to leave office and go into a gilded exile in Turkey, according to several Americans and Venezuelans involved in transition talks. This week, he was back on stage brushing off the latest U.S. escalation, a strike on a dock that the U.S. said was used for drug trafficking, by bouncing to an electronic beat on state television while his recorded voice repeated in English, "No crazy war." Mr. Maduro's regular public dancing and other displays of nonchalance in recent weeks helped persuade some on the Trump team that the Venezuelan president was mocking them and trying to call what he believed to be a bluff, according to two of the people who spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to talk about the confidential discussions. So the White House decided to follow through on its military threats. On Saturday, yada yada, basically, an elite U.S. military team. This goes into something I want to talk about later. On Saturday, an elite U.S. military team swooped into Caracas, the capital, in a pre-dawn raid and whisked Mr. Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, to New York to face drug trafficking charges. Whisked.
Like they're hopping on Aladdin's carpet here.
They're swooping and whisking.
Well, the swooping is because they're screeching American Eagles. That's why that is. I can imagine that Donnie is really upset about another foreign leader moving in on his double-fisted hand job dance routine that he does.
I know, like the cock yanking dance moves. Like it's
he's double dicking.
And like I was saying about Marco Rubio, like we were just talking about this before we started recording. Oh, by the way, this is Wet Wired.
Oh, and I'm Jules.
And it is January 6th.
And that's Sean.
We were just talking about Marco Rubio on Meet the Press in this clip where he just rambles and he talks about how like Russia and China and Iran want Venezuela's oil, and like none of this makes any sense. Like Iran outproduces Venezuela in oil production by like 4-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
And Russia, I think it's even more. Yeah, and like maybe China, you could say that about China, but they clearly have not like made a big effort to get this oil on a regular basis. It's not like they're giving arms to Venezuela or trading arms for oil or something like that, or else maybe this whole raid, this unprovoked attack wouldn't have gone off so smoothly, if they had some state-of-the-art Chinese, defenses. And, so I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but while he's talking about it, he seems like he is just absolutely zooted. He is so coked up in this interview.
The second that he came on, I was like, oh, I know that face. I've seen that face before at many a party. And I don't recall if I'm just a...
Oh, yeah, it's every guy who corners you off in the side and wants to tell you about his fucking record collection. It's...
Yeah.
This is like somebody who you barely know, like you've met him once at a bar 5 years ago, and he just like zeroes in on you and like pins you to the corner and like starts telling you about his vinyl. And I want to play this.
States need to take over the Venezuelan oil industry.
Well, we don't need to. First of all, let me go back up. We don't need Venezuela's oil. We have plenty of oil in the United States. What we're not going to allow is for the oil industry in Venezuela to be controlled by adversaries of the United States. You have to understand, why does China need their oil? Why does Russia need their oil? Why does Iran need their oil? They're not even in this continent. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. And we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operation for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States.
Have specific oil companies.
We also want to see that oil and the proceeds from it. Hold on. We want to see the oil proceeds of that country benefit the people of Venezuela. Why have 8 million people left Venezuela?
Yeah, right.
8 million, the single largest mass migration probably in modern history, left Venezuela since 2014 because all the wealth of that country was stolen to the benefit of Maduro and his cronies in the regime, but not to the benefit of people of Venezuela. You know how destabilizing 8 million migrants is? The number one fear that Brazil has, that Colombia has, that all these countries in the region have about what's happening in Venezuela and our involvement is they're afraid of another mass migration event. That's what they fear. This is deeply destabilizing stuff. It's not going to continue to happen. They are not going to come from outside of our hemisphere, destabilize our region in our own backyard, and us have to pay the price for it. Not under President Trump.
Let's talk big picture.
Yeah, and he even does that classic licking the lips about halfway through. Oh, it's
He's
perfect.
so bleary-eyed. I mean, the absolute exhaustion on that man's face. I mean, like I'm sure he's tired. I mean, even without all the cocaine, like
Yeah.
I'm sure he's exhausted. Well, like I said, people are reacting hard to the US's attack on Venezuela, to put it mildly. And you're seeing all the takes out there right now from like the fuck yeah, I'm USA, American jihadists, these triumphalists like Pete Hegseth. And then like all the way from that to the sort of crocodile tears coming from Chuck Schumer, and who's basically, he's just butthurt because Trump didn't talk to him first and allow him to vote yes on attacking Venezuela. Like this
That
is that's really the
that
complaint from all the Democrats is like,
I was just
well,
gonna say all of
you
these
should have talked to
legalists.
Congress. We hold the
Yeah.
purse, like we only Congress can declare war. Like bullshit. Like that's over.
Congress
That's such a
clutches the purse is probably a little more
Yeah,
accurate.
That's more like it. Congress clutches the purse. Like this is clearly not true. There has not been a military engagement that required congressional approval, I don't know, in the last 50 years. I mean,
Their police actions or
it's yeah, they called
well,
it
that's
a
what
law
Vietnam
enforcement
was.
action. And and because basically the US Army Delta Force was delivering a warrant.
I know it's kind of a moot
It's
point in a
sheriff
pile of
evicting somebody from from their house on behalf of the bank.
yeah. This is a moot point on a pile of moot points. But it one of the things that bothers me the most about these questions of sovereignty is as we're talking about whether or not you need to get congressional approval and whether or not it's an act of war and all these other complaints about the exact circumstances of it, there is little to no questioning at all about the question of how can the United States say you are or are not allowed to trade with other countries? How can the United States unilaterally, or I guess with whomever the allies that they're going to rope into to their project, say your activities within your own territory are illegal because we don't like them, and that gives us the right to take your shit in your waters, such as oil tankers or whatever else.
That really connects with something. I want to get to that a little bit later because it's a good transition point. But the idea of the dissolution of international rules and norms, that and that in it on its own is in a large way a return to, I mean, maybe not the 18th century, but at least the 19th century.
Well,
And
don't get ahead of us too far here.
no,
'Cause we
that's
are
what I'm
gonna get
saying.
there.
I want to talk about that a little bit in a little bit. The first place that I want to go is, like sticking with the reactions to this, is talking about the media framing of this entire incident, and that the mainstream media is doing its best to basically frame everything in terms that boomers can understand, which is the same thing that they've been hearing their whole lives, and we've all heard our lives. The some of the names have been rearranged, but it's that the US is good and commies are bad. And like that gets switched out later on to the US is good, and anybody who sponsors state terrorism is bad. And
the
like,
war on error, the war on terror.
this euphemistic language that we've been dealing with for so long is just ingrained now. It is first nature for these people. They've totally switched around the primacy of the facts and the delivery. The delivery is everything now, and there's like the facts are just secondary to to support the delivery, and which means we start picking and choosing the facts to suit a narrative. And this, after a couple of years, especially after of talking about Israel's genocide in Gaza as things like an Arab-Israeli clash, or even calling it a war, and anything other than what it was. And you just like they say people were killed by explosions or something like that, as opposed to Israel dropped bombs or launched missiles or sent out armed drones.
As we said before, the mystery of the leaping bullet.
Yeah, I mean, Reuters, like famously, a little while back, even refused to place blame on Israel for killing one of their own reporters in Lebanon, And instead of reporting on Israel repeatedly targeting and murdering the press, they wrote, Issam Abdullah, a Reuters videographer, was killed while working in southern Lebanon.
Yeah, he was
Like,
accidentally
what?
killed.
By who?
Yeah,
How?
he was working on his side hustle of skydiving instructor,
Yeah,
and his
right.
chute didn't open.
Yeah, it was a summer job changing targets at a rifle range. You know, like it was like Trump even told the media this time around, this latest, the latest this attack on Venezuela, by saying that it's totally fine to call it a kidnapping. Like, yeah, he said that's a totally fine word. Like, there's a
Is
clip
this
of
the
him
same
saying it.
instance where he got upset with the press for even daring to ask the question? Well, I mean, he always does that now, but for daring to ask the question, and then he doubled down and said, "Yeah, he probably deserved it," or something to that sentiment.
I'm not sure about the earlier context of his comments about this, but that
And I could be
but he
conflating two things.
they somebody thought that was like trying to put his feet in the fire basically and referring to it as a kidnapping. I don't know who this journalist was when they asked this question, and he's like, yeah, you can call it a kidnapping, that's a fine word for it, like. But in spite of that, or rather in light of that, the BBC issued editorial directions to its journalists, and it was saying that they've been banned from describing the kidnapped Venezuelan leader as having been kidnapped. And they sent this to its journalists. The BBC news editor sent this. To ensure clarity and consistency in our reporting, please follow these guidelines when describing the recent events in Venezuela. Captured in quotations. Please attribute this to the U.S. description of the operation. Example, quote, the U.S. said Maduro was captured during the operation. Seized. Acceptable for use in our own reporting where appropriate. Avoid using kidnapped. Thanks for keeping this in mind as you work on related stories. And like the adherence to this, even when they've been given free rein to use the term, which is obviously the most appropriate word,
Yeah.
they still refuse to do it. They have to just, they have to stay ambiguous about these things and continue speaking passively about them, and reinforcing the narrative that it is a law enforcement action. So even though Trump, this goes into how Trump's own comments have consistently been reported. He really causes a lot of people to bristle, even his own supporters, when he says, we're doing this for the oil, and he's like, oh yeah, he's a drug trafficker, but we're going to take the oil, and we're going to, they stole that oil from U.S. companies, fair and who took it from them fair and square, and like we're gonna get it back for them because they stole it. And a lawyer on Twitter was responding to this tweet from the BBC, or about the BBC, and he was saying that the legal term here is abducted because there's no ransom request. And I'm like, well, yeah, you didn't get a letter in the mail with letters cut out of a fucking magazine, but I think the ransom is the oil.
Yeah.
and like maybe you should just call him a hostage. That and he's gonna get traded for the oil, because if
as Rubio and Trump have been saying this whole time, oh well, we're doing this for the Venezuelan people and to make sure that they're profiting off the oil. Now, yes,
that's always the thing that they say. That's always the thing they say last. They talk about the oil first, and then they're like, and the Venezuelans are really happy about this.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you could explore how much corruption there may or may not be, but that's really beside the point of the reason that they're talking about the oil as being stolen from us is because at the beginning of Chavez's regime, he was saying that we want you, if you're going to participate in this extraction of the oil here in Venezuela, we want to have because they already had basically nationalized their oil since the 70s. But for your stake in this, we want majority control for the stake in these various projects. And Chevron ultimately agreed to it, but ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips said, "Now we're out." And when they left in a hurry, Chavez said, "All right, you left your stuff here. Thank you." And then they sued them in I presume some sort of World Bank court. Every article that I read doesn't mention where they sued, what jurisdiction, but I'm sure it's some kind of IMF, World Bank.
It was Delaware, the
Con-
Chancellery Court.
Yeah. Regardless of that, that's been kind of the outstanding salt and bitterness over the oil all these years.
You know, and like the sticking with this euphemistic language, the Financial Times, when they reported on it, they referred to the U.S. as unprovoked attack and kidnapping of of Venezuela's president by printing a headline that says Trump piles fresh pressure on Venezuela. And
Well,
like
see,
accompanied
the
with a
fresh
photo.
pressure is so they can get at that sweet sticky.
And
You
like,
gotta
so
really pump it in the ground.
this is, I'm just going to read the beginning of this article. Donald Trump ramped up pressure on Venezuela's interim leaders yesterday after launching, he called them interim leaders.
Yeah.
I guess that's so that they can continue, like, you know, that language that it was a stolen election in 2024, which it kind of seems like it might have been.
It seems pretty dubious.
Yeah. So interim leaders yesterday, after launching the most brazen foreign policy gambit of his second presidency by capturing and toppling the country's leader, Nicolas Maduro. Trump warned Delcy Rodriguez, Venezuela's vice president and de facto leader, that she needed to meet U.S. demands after Secretary of State Marco Rubio laid out a series of conditions that Washington expects Caracas to accept in order to avoid a fresh assault. Quote, if she doesn't do what's right, she's going to pay a very big price, probably bigger than Maduro, Trump told The Atlantic magazine. Venezuela's president for more than a decade arrived by helicopter in New York City late on Saturday, less than 24 hours after he was taken from his bedroom by U.S. Special Forces. He will tomorrow be arraigned on criminal charges. He pled not guilty, by the way. The move follows months of escalation by Washington, including boat strikes against alleged drug traffickers. You know, you know, like I think the next reaction, like that I wanted to mention, was from Pam Bondi. Did you see the actual charges that Maduro is being the actual indictments that Maduro is being charged with?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God. I mistakenly did not leave this up here, but I will I'll get it for us real fast. They're ridiculous. I want to read them verbatim from her because she tweeted these out, because this is, you know, that's the official method of communication now for everybody. We, you know, everything goes out through tweets. That's how information is disseminated at this point.
Or truths.
Truths, yes, they go out through truths for sure. So Pam Bondi.
Hey, Sean. Um, look that up. I'm gonna be right back in like just 2 seconds here.
You don't need to say these things. I have to cut it when you say it. This is from Pam Bondi. Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. Nicolas Maduro has been charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the United States. Like, what is any of that? The actual indictment.
How is that illegal for machine guns? What are you talking about?
I mean, now we're gonna impose gun laws on other countries, but not the U.S. Like,
what is going on?
I know what is going on. They actually unsealed as I was like looking for Bondi's original tweet about this, which was on January 3rd at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I looked at I saw that the actual indictment, that the court document had been unsealed, and it says that he's the Nicolas Maduro Moros, the defendant, is at the forefront of that corruption and has partnered with his co-conspirators to use his illegally obtained authority and the institutions he corroded to transport thousands of tons of cocaine to the United States. Since his early days in Venezuelan government, Maduro Moros has tarnished every public office he has held. As a member of Venezuela's National Assembly, Maduro Moros moved loads of cocaine. Loads. That's a legal term. Loads.
Yeah.
Loads of cocaine under the protection of Venezuelan law enforcement. As Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Maduro Moros provided Venezuelan diplomatic passports to drug traffickers and facilitated diplomatic cover for planes used by money launderers to repatriate drug proceeds from Mexico to Venezuela. As Venezuela's president and now de facto ruler, Maduro Moros allows cocaine-fueled corruption to flourish for his own benefit, for the benefit of members of his ruling regime and for the benefit of his family members. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe that this is the language that they use when they file an official document.
They've already run out of competent lawyers on the first term.
Maduro Moros, the defendant, listen to this, now sits atop a corrupt, illegitimate government that for decades has leveraged government power to protect and promote illegal activity, including drug trafficking. That drug trafficking has enriched and entrenched Venezuela's political and military elite, including Minister of the Interior, Justice, and Peace, Diosdado Cabello Rondon, the defendant, and former Minister of the Interior and Justice, Ramon Rodriguez Chacin, the defendant. The massive scale drug trafficking has also concentrated power and wealth in the hands of the Maduro Moros family, including his wife, the purported First Lady of Venezuela, Celia Adela Flores de Maduro. The defendant and Maduro Moros' son, member of Venezuela's National Assembly, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolesito, aka the Prince. The Prince. He's got a James Bond nickname. He's the Prince. The cycle of narcotics-based corruption lines the pockets of Venezuelan officials and their families, while also benefiting violent narco-terrorists who operate with impunity on Venezuelan soil and who help produce, protect, and transport tons of cocaine to the United States. It continues on. It's actually a 25-page long document. It mentions the defendants, though. The defendants are interesting. It's like, because it's Maduro's. It's this guy, Diosdado Cabello Rondon. He was a minister of the Interior. He was not captured. So I think they're going to do that, trying them in absence, basically. Ramon Rodriguez Chacin, Venezuelan politician, former member of the Armed Forces, Minister of the Interior and Justice in the early 2000s. Celia Adela Flores de Maduro, I mentioned, is Nicolas Maduro's wife. Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, who is currently in Venezuela and giving stump speeches for Delcy Rodriguez, did not get captured also. And then a guy named Hector Rustin Ford Guerrero Flores, aka Nino Guerrero. He's a co-leader. Oh, okay. So this is one of the things too, is that the idea that Nicolas Maduro is the head of some cartel.
Oh, that's the best part.
They finally have walked that back. Like the original, I guess a reporter saw a draft of this document, of this charging document from the grand jury. And it had mentioned what's the name of that cartel that he supposedly is the head of?
I don't recall. I know what you're talking about, but I don't recall.
Something like De Solis anyway. And the and Cartel of the Suns or something,
Yeah.
and so not as in, the children, as in like the sun in
Yeah.
the sky.
Yeah.
They finally I can't remember the reporter's name. I think he writes for The Intercept, but he's been saying all along, this is totally made up. They just made it up. It
Of
never
course.
existed. And they finally have walked this back, and this document went from having like 25 mentions of this made up cartel, I think, to just 2 now. But they totally retreated on all of this. The Justice Department has.
I've been wondering throughout this, how are they going to provide evidence for all of this shit?
I
And-
know.
Where is that going to come from? Especially when they walk back the things like the made up association with the group and all that fiction. This other stuff is just as fucking made up. Or I'm sure there may be some things that could conceivably be true. But the follow-up question I have is, what laws are they going to try them under, and under what jurisdiction?
I mean,
In
I
the
think
sense
they're
that if you're trying somebody in The Hague for example, for war crimes or something like that, somebody went to the trouble of writing down what those crimes are.
Well, I mean, these are the crimes, the indictments are in this document, but I mean, I'm not lawyerly enough to know enough to be able to talk about this very intelligently, but I do know that there's plenty of precedent for this. They tried El Chapo in the U.S. He was a foreign
Yeah.
national. They
Yeah.
tried that. They tried that the president of Honduras that Trump just pardoned in the U.S., but who was convicted for bringing in like 400 tons of cocaine, and Trump pardoned him.
Yeah.
They
So are they
tried-
federal U.S. Laws?
Yeah,
is
so
that the effect of it?
I think that it's a federal law. Yeah, because that's why it's the Southern District of New York, because it's federal court. As opposed to, well, no, that's not federal court.
The districts are federal.
Yes, yeah, it is. Like I said, I can't talk about this smartly. I can't do it. I just know that
look at the big brain on Sean.
Yeah, when we get into the details, I have no idea. But
Same here.
But I've seen the news stories. I see the precedents. They've obviously done this over and over again. So it happens. And I assume they'll try them the same way. And I think
I cannot wait to see televised or at least some kind of artist's rendering of these fucking kangaroo courts that they're going to run him through.
It probably will be a rendering, but I think I would love to talk to a journalist or a lawyer who is more tuned in on this stuff to really pick apart this idea of narco terrorism not as a media device or some kind of rhetorical device that the government uses to fire people up and a politician uses in a speech or something, but just as an actual legal charge, because it sounds so shamelessly made up. Like they sandwich together the two abstract military engagements that we've been involved in my entire life, which is the war on drugs and the war on terror. They just wedged them together. Yeah. And with some staples and maybe some macaroni art, it's and calling it narco terrorism. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
And terrorism is meant to provoke a political response from the target of the terrorism, and narco whatever is just drug trafficking. So I mean, is it meant to, how do you assign that, how do you assign that sort of make that charge stick that there's some kind of political motivation, or do they even try?
I think part of the problem is that they ran out of a more concrete feeling villain when the Berlin Wall fell. And
well, yeah, of course, with the collapse of the Soviet Union and and not having anything, that's obviously the motivation for this. But I'm really interested in how they managed to stick the landing with the language. Like
Yeah.
how, like what when you dig down into it, like what exactly is narco terrorism supposed to be? Because it just sounds so shamelessly concocted.
Well, even more so for me is that machine gun conspiracy
I
charge.
know. Oh my God, what a band name. Machine Gun Conspiracy?
Oh, it's probably ska punk.
God, it's fucking terrible, I'm sure, whatever band it is.
Oh, definitely. They
All
had
right,
one album.
moving on with the reactions because we don't have all the time in the world around here. I want to get to Denmark because this is a good one from the Prime Minister of Denmark. He just, I mean, they have to be shitting their pants right now about,
Oh yeah,
about because Denmark controls Greenland. I mean, at least,
in
ostensibly.
theory.
Like, so the Prime Minister of Denmark scrambled to remind everyone that Greenland belongs to them and that they're part of NATO, and that's supposed to mean something. God damn it!
Yeah.
He wrote, I must say this very clearly to the United States. It makes absolutely no sense to speak of any necessity for the United States to take over Greenland. The United States has no legal basis to annex one of the three countries of the Kingdom of Denmark. The Kingdom of Denmark, and thus Greenland, is a member of NATO and is therefore covered by the alliance's collective security guarantee. We already have a defense agreement between the Kingdom of Denmark and the United States that grants the U.S. broad access to Greenland. In addition, the kingdom has made significant investments in security in the Arctic. I therefore strongly urge the United States to cease its threats against a historically close ally and against another country and another people who have stated very clearly that they are not for sale. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. It's like those days are over. It's just over.
One reporter was trying so fucking hard to
Max
get Stephen
Blumenthal.
Miller.
Max Blumenthal. He was the one that's been repeatedly saying that that cartel that Maduro is allegedly the head of is just total bullshit. He's been saying it for months. Yeah, it was Max Blumenthal.
There's this reporter that was really trying to get Stephen Miller to just commit to saying
I saw this. Yeah.
Whether or not the U.S. will take military force off the table, and he wouldn't fucking do it, which is telling. But come on, like in the absence of concretely saying we're not going to commit an act of war against a NATO ally. Short of something like that, it's pretty clear that it's not off the table.
No, not at all. I mean, first off, they don't even need it. They literally, it is unguarded. I mean, there's not like a military garrison there. Like the U.S. probably has. I say we. Like, I'm not part of this fucking country. I just pay taxes here. The U.S. has a military presence there on its own. So I mean, and what, Denmark? Who gives a shit about the Kingdom of Denmark?
Which is a silly phrase in 2026.
19th century shit again. It's like, it's more 19th century shit. The kingdom of anything is just ridiculous. And I mean, at least it was the prime minister and not some propped up monarch that wrote this message. But the other thing that they really just have not caught up on in Europe is that nobody gives a shit about NATO in Washington.
No,
nobody cares. They don't care about NATO. They don't care about the EU. They don't care about any of it. They realize that the EU is this sort of lumbering dinosaur that, even though it's only a couple of decades old, it's totally ineffectual. And
absolutely,
that there is no threat there to anybody. They can't even make Russia stand down. And and Russia is even now, I guess it's probably stronger now than when it first invaded Ukraine. But but they couldn't like, Putin's not intimidated by any of this stuff. It's because he knows the US isn't going to come running to back this mutual defense pact. And there's just no the US doesn't care about the collective security agreement. They've made this clear by backing away. See, the U.S. maintained control over, militarily control over Europe by being the primary, I guess,
provider,
a primary guarantee of security. For the continent, And like by Trump insisting that everybody else pays more and more and more into NATO's security, and that means US pays less and less and less, he doesn't care. It doesn't
It's
matter.
also it's increasingly diminishing whatever hegemony the U.S. has within that organization. But even there, who gives a shit? The organization has once the U.S. is no longer um, the total unwavering assurance, like the sun's going to come up tomorrow, that it once provided to be. It's less security and more of a security blanket.
Yeah, and there is every reason for the US to want to take Greenland. And one of the major reasons is also one of the major reasons why they want to have more influence in Venezuela. It's not just the oil, it's all the rare earth minerals.
Yeah.
And Greenland's supposed to have a lot of them from what I've read. And Donnie wants them. Like, because the
He's
only
gonna
other place you can get a lot of this shit is from China. And
he's gonna have to kick out the 3 people and their 7 sheep who live on that island.
literally 30,000 people live there. And if you're going to believe Björk, because she just tweeted about this, like there is not there they don't have like the greatest relationship with Denmark in the first place. Like the
Yeah.
people of Greenland. And she mentioned this like forced sterilization program that went on like for like within the last couple of decades. And
That's astounding.
that something like 4,500 young girls had IUDs implanted in them again, like without their knowledge.
Holy
And like,
shit.
I don't know what that's all about. That's the first that I've ever heard of that mentioned. But yeah, that would be something worth talking about and would be probably pretty angering to the people. Like they may want to like say, hey, yeah, just move in, get these fuckers out of here. As long
And
as you
they've been back and
as
forth
as long
for
as you agree to never do this to us. Like,
they've been back and forth for a minute there on that particular question of getting independence from Denmark for years.
yeah, and Stephen Miller, I mean, he could have been a little bit less obviously cagey in his responses there. I mean, he could have just said something along the lines of, "We don't need to use the military."
I do not understand when
Like, we
they
don't need
choose
to
to
do that.
lie and choose to not, because
And like
they'll
it's just a weird lie, because like you could just say we don't need to use it, and then later on, like, just use it if you want to. I mean, they could just go back there. It could be like JD Vance and Usha could just land and plant a flag and say this is ours now.
and I mean it would be nothing at all to do. But moving on, because
Yeah. All
we
right.
we still got to
So,
get to the history lesson.
well, we actually don't need to get to that. I keep telling
I,
Jules, I've been texting him.
I'm not going to give a
I do
history
not want to
lesson.
do a dry like review of fucking 19th century political drama. Like, I don't want to do it. Like, if you want to remember what the Monroe Doctrine is, look it up on Wikipedia. Like, I think that people are overplaying the influence of these things, but there is historical precedent. Like, I'm not removing it from as a factor. But the next one is the Blue Anon reaction, because I think this is great. And this is from an opinion piece that was written by somebody who grew up in the Soviet Union, in the New York Times. But they've managed to interpret everything that Trump does as somehow good for Putin. And I don't like, somehow, like, when Putin loses a key ally like Venezuela, who they had a relationship with, that still benefits Putin somehow. I mean, seriously, he still wins. The guy can't lose. This is from M. Gesson, an opinion columnist who looks a little bit like Lori Petty. Um, the In the initial rush of news on Saturday morning, many commentators speculated that the abduction of President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela was also a blow to President Vladimir Putin of Russia, since Venezuela and Russia are allies. They are. To the contrary, it is a victory for Putin, because it is a blow quite literally fatal to the new world order of law, justice, and human rights that was heralded in the wake of World War II. I mean, that's not a bad point there, but I don't think he's going to benefit in that as those things shake down. Only in Europe. The order was never as robust as its champions made it out to be. Many of the multilateral institutions created to foster cooperation and enforce international law have been dysfunctional, often because they were sabotaged by their most powerful members. And yet, some mechanisms worked, some laws were enforced, some crimes were punished, and many more were probably prevented. Millions of people had their freedom and dignity affirmed, and a reasonable hope persisted that a law-based humanistic world order would be built. No longer. I just think that is just like stars in your eyes bullshit. I don't think it was ever as good as anybody made it out to be. I think it was all cover, just like the ICC has been criticized recently as, as like like an international criminal court for white people. And, because you don't, like, when you look at it, the people who are always targets of those investigations are coming from Latin America. They're coming from Africa. Sometimes
it's
they're
always
coming
the
from
global
Southeast
South.
Asia. It is always the global South, minus Australia and New Zealand. They're sort of like, grandfathered into the global North. And it is never anybody who is really behind, like one of the more powerful nations, even though time and again they commit the greatest atrocities simply because they have more reach. And over and over and over again, these things, none of these things get brought up in these international bodies.
These international bodies, and really the activity since the end of World War II, have been about moving the chess pieces on the board that have, at that point, been constrained to former colonies and are now effectively economic colonies or satellite states of whichever dominant power is trying to hedge their way in.
Yeah. All right, my last one is that the biggest loser here has got to be Maria Corina Machado. Because she has literally spent her entire life working with the U.S. National Endowment for Democracy, which is just cover for, like preventing communism all over Latin America. And trying to be a team player with the U.S. She lobbied for Trump to invade Venezuela just a few months ago. She dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump. I mean, just imagine all the lobbying work it took to get that Nobel Prize.
Oh,
and
yeah.
how many like just dinners that she had to have with disgusting old European politicians and CEOs as she like campaigned her way through the diplomatic circuit. It must have just been fucking revolting. This is a woman who has she's really debased herself in her subservience, and she still wasn't made Trump's pick to run Venezuela. He
goes to show being obsequious is just the default mode when it comes to Trump. It doesn't get you shit.
It doesn't get you shit. And I think a big part of this is for Donald Trump, it's probably, getting into reasons is always dicey, like I said earlier. But for Donald Trump, it was probably because she accepted the Nobel Peace Prize, which he obviously wanted. So much that she had, Johnny Baby from FIFA, or he had Johnny Baby from FIFA come up with his own, made up Peace Prize. And, from the fucking soccer league. And so, and then after all this, Trump didn't even do regime change. It's all of Maduro's people there still. The only people that are gone are Maduro and his wife. Everybody else is the same.
For all this talk of the United States is going to run the country, and then they waffle and say that they're not going to run the country, when the U.S. ambassador is speaking, and then they're back to running the country, and now it's just the VP.
Can imagine you can imagine how this plays out in conversations with Donald Trump, where they're where people are telling him no, she's gonna play ball with us, she's gonna work with us, this is gonna be fine, we're basically gonna run the country. And then he goes out and says we're gonna run the country. And everybody else everybody else is out there on the Sunday morning shows, having to answer what the fuck he means by that. And then Marco Rubio says over and over, we're not really going to run the country. And they're not really going to run the country because they didn't do regime change, but they are going to run the country because I have no doubt that Delcy Rodriguez is going to cooperate,
Yeah.
like, and as long as she can keep walking that line of keeping Maduro's supporters happy and doing what the US wants, and like getting the oil ready to start pumping and getting those mines opened up, then she's going to stay in office. Nobody
She appears
cares
to be
about
a deft
elections.
tactician.
Yeah, nobody cares about elections. Her father was a Marxist guerrilla.
No shit.
Yeah,
Good for
like he
her.
was famous for being involved, like kidnapping this fucking like this some foreign CEO and keeping him hostage for 3 years.
Whoa, that's cray.
Yeah, and like and in that entire time, like he was, I guess, I mean, according to him, he was never mistreated. They were always like on the up and up with him. They just like, they kept him safe the whole time, and they basically were just using him for leverage. It never really worked out. And they ended up somebody ended up finally just, like losing faith in the whole project and gave up his location. And some government troops came, or they just accidentally encountered some government troops, the two guards that he was with, and
Yeah.
him. And when the government troops were like, hey, who are you guys, what the fuck are you up to, basically, and figured out what was happening, they literally just executed those two guys on the spot and freed him. And it was
Whoa.
like, yeah. And he said like that was
That's
a
a wild
traumatizing
ride.
experience for him, not
Yeah.
the captivity for 3 fucking years. It
Yeah.
wasn't that. It was watching these two guys get executed, because he'd literally never witnessed any violence like that
Yeah.
the entire time he was a captive. And yeah, anyway. But yeah, that her dad was in charge of those guerrillas that executed that operation. Like,
That is
it's
something else.
crazy. Yeah. Uh, I guess, it's clearing up some stuff here too before we get into the dissolution of international law. Maduro had a bounty on him of $25 million that was placed on his head by Biden and Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And, so like this is not like just a Trump thing. This has just been going on. The sanctions that were put on Venezuela go back to Obama.
Yeah.
Like
They
it's
they were
like,
they
and
were right
Chavez.
after the squabble with ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips in 2007.
Absolutely. Like, and so, like people don't want to talk about it in this way because we have such short-term memory and we're distracted. And, there's like some of this is by design, that we have no time on our hands to think about these things or to get the information we need to make good decisions and, come up with conclusions. But sanctions, that, like, I don't think that there's a single example of economic sanctions, which is another just a euphemism for economic warfare, being placed on a country that did not result in the citizens suffering the most.
Always.
Every single time it is the populace that feels the brunt of those sanctions. So when there's food shortages in Venezuela, when there's no jobs in Venezuela, when the power grid becomes unstable in Venezuela, it is not like it's not like the cruel prince in the castle decided to cut off all the food to the people. It's like, no, there's no food because there's no money because there's fucking sanctions.
Yeah. And
And
they
this has
they
been
starve
a
them out, and
tool.
then when just like the same kind, people will starve government programs in domestic policy to make sure that the government programs fail, and then when they fail, they say, "See, I told you, government doesn't work." They do the same thing with these regimes and say, "See, I told you." He's
It,
he's
it's
he's
I
totally
mean
incompetent and all the rest.
it's effectively a medieval siege. Like you encircle the enemy's castle and you just sit tight until the food runs out. You sit
Yeah.
tight until they start fighting amongst themselves, until they demand to be let out of the fortress, rather than keeping you from entering it. And it's the same exact tactic that's been going on for hundreds of years, if not thousands. And this is exactly what works every single time. And it pisses them off to no end when you have a nation like Cuba who manages to continue existing in spite of all of this economic warfare that's been waged against them for decades. Cuba has managed to continue existing. And now
Yeah.
with Venezuela, like in upheaval, that the future of Cuba is even more precarious than it ever has been, because Venezuela was contributing, I believe, 40% of of Cuba's oil, and that was not, they were not selling 40% of what Cuba uses. It was a donation, and
Lindsey Graham
this is a big deal
was literally giddy. He was
Oh, yeah.
smiling like a child before Christmas, to frothing at the mouth over Cuba, and basically saying, "Let's invade. Come on, let's do it."
Yeah. Did you see him with that fucking "Make Iran Great Again" hat?
Oh
Jesus
no, I didn't.
Christ. Fucking MIGA.
They're not that
Oh, man.
creative, frankly.
He had a black hat in the MAGA style that said "Make Iran Great Again." Fucking ridiculous. And all these craven PMs in Europe too. Like, have you been? I mean, you see some of these statements that these guys have released, these official statements. I mean, Keir Starmer from Great Britain was getting interviewed, and he's like about his, what his take is about the U.S. launching an attack on another country like this, and he's like, well, I don't have all the facts. I don't know what's going on. I can't possibly have an opinion about any of this. It's like, you motherfucker, you have been talking for 4 fucking years or however long about how, Russia has broken all of these international norms by invading Ukraine, and how they should immediately leave, and that we won't tolerate these kinds of acts of aggression and all this shit. And then the US kidnaps the president of another fucking country, and you have no comment. Like,
It's
these
the same thing that
cowards.
Mike Johnson does. He seems to be part of the fucking know nothing party because he always goddamn knows nothing.
Yeah, I know.
Anytime that he's asked about something that Trump does that is just unhinged.
I mean, this is why, like, fuck these European countries. They are worthless. They're
Yeah.
fucking worthless.
They
Fuck
are.
them. I mean, like, I love the culture. I love the, like, I've been to plenty of places in Europe. It's fantastic, amazing places, but like, fuck these, I mean, not the countries and the people, obviously, like,
The
but
governments.
these rulers, these political parties and these rulers, because it's
And these
like,
and these
they
old
just, like,
hobbled together
fold.
relics of states from another time,
Yeah.
like
I mean,
like a
there's just, like,
kingdom of Denmark.
yeah, I like, they just have no backbone whatsoever. I mean, again, Jesus Christ, this is why people like them. To their credit, this is why people are starting to, like, fall under the sway of some of these far right political parties, like, whatever it's called, that's being run by Marie Le Pen in France, because she came out and said this is intolerable. We
Yeah.
can't have, we need to have standards that we all adhere to. And, like,
Well,
oh my,
that is
and
how
you know what?
Mussolini came.
People agree with this shit. And yes, that is how Mussolini came to power. People agree with this shit. They're like, yes, I agree. And meanwhile, you have these, like, milk toast, like, fucking marbles in their mouth people like Keir Starmer and Emile Macron, who just come out and, like, oh, I don't have enough information. I can't possibly have an opinion about this. Like,
Or a spine.
what do you need to form an opinion? It happened. Is there a good reason? Can you think of a good reason? It's like what you were saying earlier. It's like, what possible justification could there be? Like, yeah, like, I understand your rationale. You want the fucking oil. You've been totally clear about that. People need to say that's not okay.
Yeah.
And nobody's willing to do that. Nobody's willing to tell the US to fuck off, except
Yeah.
the country that we impose our will on. They're the
Yeah.
only ones. And in this case, maybe not even them, like,
Yeah. And then
because
you
Delcy
become part of
Rodriguez
a
is not saying
BRICS.
fuck off. She's saying Maduro is still the president. I don't even want this job. She did say to, words to that effect,
Yeah.
but she didn't say, like, fuck off. We will not tolerate this, and, like, lock down that fucking country, like, take a stand, like, because she knows nobody's going to back her.
Nobody.
Like, none of the countries along the northern coast of South America, none of the countries in Europe, not fucking Colombia, nobody's really going to back her.
And
all these, like,
especially when the United States spends more on military annually than the next, depending on which year and who you ask, 7 to 9 nations combined.
yeah.
Who could
Oh yeah.
stand up against
Another
that?
international shakeup. Japan. It was recently reported they have increased their military spending by, like, a factor of 3 or something like that. and they are now the third highest military. They have the third highest military budget in the world.
And it's all defensive, of course, because
No,
they're not
it's
allowed to
not.
have offensive. I know. I'm saying
that's gone.
I
That is gone. That
I'm saying,
provision is gone. Yeah.
Are you saying literally it's gone, or
No, it is
or
literally
de
gone.
facto? Oh,
It is literally gone.
I didn't know when.
These are
they repealed
offensive.
that.
These are strike weapons.
Yeah,
These are not defensive weapons. We're not talking about like investing heavily in some kind of a missile shield technology or
Yeah.
something like that. Like, no, we're talking about like attack boats. We're talking
Yeah.
about cruise missiles,
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, they're like fighter jets, like a lot of drones, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's they're clearly spooked about the growing influence of China, and
Yeah.
they're like, and the possibility of China attacking Taiwan and seeing that as kind of a last straw, you know,
Yeah.
like for them. So, yikes.
Well, I just want to do
You
a
know, so,
speed
I
run
mean,
of
No, because we're talking about like that's the idea that I had things
Yeah.
arranged like this, is that I want to culminate in like, you know, with this kind of anything goes mentality that the US
Yeah.
has, and that nobody is willing to do any of that, like do anything about it. Nobody's
Yeah.
willing to even speak up about it. And that's the thing that's really the most terrifying, is that nobody's even speaking up. You know, like
and
China isn't
they're
arming
they're afraid
Venezuela.
of the consequences of Trump, who can do things that, even if it's illegal, who is going to stop him from doing the illegal thing
Yeah.
for
now-
for
and,
the
like,
for the
the-
first
the-
offense?
They're so blatant about it that they're not even trying to get the buy-in from American public the way, and international partners the way that they used to. It's all like on, you know, the US is just acting on its own. You know,
Yep.
it's just doing whatever it wants, which does have a real 19th century flair to it. You know, so I understand the comparison, and plus Trump keeps mentioning the fucking Monroe Doctrine. He doesn't
Yeah.
even know what it is, and
No.
like, and then he has like the Trump corollary named after the Roosevelt corollary. You know, like the Monroe Doctrine was one line in a very long document, and
Yeah.
you know, basically saying that European powers should get out of our hemisphere, and you know, all the old world shit, and you know, should get out of here.
Yeah.
And like,
And
this
it's
is our
and it's not
this is
even
our
some kind of like
backyard.
a legal basis. It's just a principle.
It's just a principle. Yeah.
And with that said, I did want to do a quick speed run here of context for that, which is that at the end of World War II, the global powers that came out of it, they had 6 years of war, and the winners didn't just collect their chips and go home. They bought the fucking casino and put up under new management signs. And this new, we had political institutions that were set up. The spoils of war were divvied up, and now we have a new struggle between different worldviews, two different competing worldviews, which were honestly really kind of similar. And you had the European and American continents all in line, right in order, behind the U.S., and it's all based on diplomats and economists who are the oracles of this new Western order. The nerds took the reins at this
because
point.
we had, you know, like the organizations they set up were things that, you know, could impose their will internationally, like the IMF and the World Bank.
Yep. And
you know, and like, but you have something in here. I wanted you to read it, but the you know, like mentioning that, like the way that this is manifested, all of this new influence, this new in 20th century imperialism, is that the U.S., one country after another, that they manipulated elections, they orchestrated coups, they engineered and then exploited financial crises in these different countries, and all of these acts were meant to destabilize these countries so that they would either bend to the US's will, or they could get somebody in who would.
And
over and over again.
That's exactly what I wrote in here, and really, and that's also in addition to that they saturated the media in domestic and in target countries with propaganda from the State Department and also media conglomerates with what's called manufactured consent. But now that's almost a funny word now that we know that Chomsky's on the Epstein list.
Yeah.
But he really didn't write most of that book. He wrote like a couple of the chapters. But
whose consent is getting manufactured here?
Yeah,
and how
right.
old was she?
Jesus Christ. I feel weird saying that term now, but also that's the term. It's a good term. I'm not going to quit using it. West of the Iron Curtain, we had the liberal international order. And I'm not just, smashing words together. That's kind of the historian's term for this period, that put the US at the helm of finance and military and political control. And the US dollar, importantly, became the global exchange currency, because at the Bretton Woods Agreement, 1944, the world powers got together in the West and said, all right, how are we going to do this? And out of that, we got the IMF and the World Bank. Oil was and is traded in US dollars as the dominant gold-pegged reserve currency, the global reserve currency, until 71, when Nixon removed the gold standard. But luckily enough for us, that same year, he made an agreement with Saudi Arabia to trade in US dollars, keeping that US influence in oil markets by requiring the dollar to continue to be used to trade oil. So we also have in this period the creation of the Marshall Plan, which later became the Mutual Security Act and US aid, so that they can use soft power to influence all these countries and get them sucking on the teat of US power and not scrambling over to the USSR. The UN, Geneva Conventions, NATO, all of them were created in that post-war period of a handful of years, between 44 and 49, effectively. And this whole idea of Westphalian sovereignty, that a state has this absolute right to sovereignty within its borders unless it attacks another, that came out of this. That was the new order. And sovereignty, non-intervention, legal equality of states, that became the New World Order. And don't tell Alex Jones that, by the way. And the UN used all that lofty language that we were talking about before, all this flowery language of human rights for all. And the fact is really just good for business. They wanted stable markets that they could control. And the best way to do that was a world where it's an order by rules. And that is the difference. And it was basically necessary because we had competing nuclear armed superpowers, and they're going to blow each other up if we're doing things how they did before. And that's where we get why this is so fucking shocking to everybody who keeps screaming that that's illegal, you can't do that, is that out of the fall of the Berlin Wall, the sole victor was global corporate rule. Neoliberalism became the economic consensus, Reagan and Thatcher in the 80s, and then the Democrats adopted it too with the New Democrats of Clinton and Biden in the 90s. Biden, notably as a senator at that time, pushing the same NAFTA and basically liberalization of domestic and foreign policy. So it was all good. It's all roses. And in that period of time, since the 90s, when there was a budget surplus, by the way, government support networks or support systems were totally gutted. The middle class was created, and we kept going with the Cold War military budget without a Cold War villain. And all of these scandals over and over again of lies over the decades and decades and decades to fight endless wars, it made it ripe in the US for good old-fashioned American first populism. And that's where we get the fan of President William McKinley, President Donald Trump. And McKinley ushered in the progressive era in 1897.
People don't know you're joking sometimes. Somebody told Trump that McKinley existed, gave him a couple of factoids about him, and then he just keeps talking about him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And just a quick note on McKinley of why he's kind of a good match is he was a huge proponent of tariffs and America First nationalism, and he oversaw a huge U.S. expansion to acquire territories, uh, basically implementing the newer take on Monroe Doctrine. It was ultimately called the Roosevelt Corollary because Roosevelt kind of added to it a little bit, but it was basically McKinley getting it going with the Spanish-American War, Cuba, Hawaii, the Philippines, Guam, Puerto Rico, American Samoa. This guy got a lot done in 4 years. This is from the New Yorker. Do you want to read this one?
You want me to do it?
Yeah.
As a historical figure, Donald Trump is oddly hard to place in time. He was an icon of the 1980s, yet he's also the defining figure of the post-Obama era. I mean, declining in health and mental faculties.
Yeah.
But his politics oscillate between knuckle-dragging conservatism and manic accelerationism. That's a nice expression.
Yeah.
He longs for a time when America was great, though when that was is unclear. Yeah, it's a real issue with those MAGA people. When they had a pinpoint on the timeline when great actually happened.
Show us on the doll when great was happening.
Trump's McKinleyism is not deeply informed. On Fox Business, the president said that McKinley had been assassinated because, quote, he was charging all these countries money, probably. Who the hell knows? Unquote. Oh, you wanted me to read this because of this name in here. His murderer, Leon Solgush, was an anarchist from Michigan. I did my best. I'm sorry.
I'm sure it was pretty good.
To everybody who's Czech, I apologize. Was an anarchist from Michigan, so not an agent of foreign commercial interest, probably. Who the hell knows? The historian Eric Rauchway describes Trump as, quote, historically oblivious for evincing no awareness of the depression of the 1890s, whose severity was owed in part to the protectionist tariffs he praises. Yeah, I mean, saying Trump is historically oblivious is, saying that he has a hairpiece.
Yeah.
Trump's knowledge is thin, but his belly isn't. His instincts are sharp, and if he picked the wrong individual, he nevertheless picked the right era. McKinley sprang from an age when the United States relationship to the world was fundamentally different. It was a time of trade barriers and colonial wars, a time before what political scientists call the liberal international order.
Yeah, and Trump took off the gloves in his second term. That's where throughout 2025, he's devastated the assumptions of an unshakable liberal international order with his tariffs, gutting these institutions, including USAID.
Turns out you can shake it.
Turns out you can shake it.
Yeah. And never shake an international order. Never.
Don't do it. It's not going to be good for,
it's not good for the international order.
And then this is actually from the November 2025 security strategy, where they actually just came right out and said it from the White House. After years of neglect, the United States will reassert and enforce the Monroe Doctrine to restore American preeminence in the Western Hemisphere, and to protect our homeland and our access to key geographies throughout the region. We will deny non-hemispheric competitors the ability to position forces or other threatening capabilities, or to own or control strategically vital assets in our hemisphere. This Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine is a common sense and potent restoration of American power and priorities consistent with American security interests. This is from whitehouse.gov.
I love it so much. I know you have it in here, but I just wanted to, I just laugh at it so much that they created the new Trump class battleships, which is
so good.
He can't stop himself from putting his name on everything, from like
everything
wine to steaks to casinos to the fucking Kennedy Center, and now he has his own class of battleship. Not his name on a battleship. They're a battleship.
That's the name of the class.
The class is the Trump class battleship. I just
and they called it the Golden Fleet.
it leans really forward onto their toes, and they have trouble going downstairs.
By the way, the reason we have had new battleships since the end of World War II is because they're not useful anymore.
Because they're fucking worthless. He's got no idea like what's required. I mean, they're spending billions of dollars on each one of these motherfuckers, and like
It's going to take 6 or 7 years for them to get to the finish line, if that.
To even finish them. He won't even probably be alive until when they finish the first ship and they put it into the ocean. And by then, it will literally leave the dock and be obsolete as soon as it gets into the open water. Like,
yeah,
it's already obsolete. They haven't even built the fucking things yet. Hopefully, they can this will just stay on the drawing board, and it will not result in, it'll just be millions of dollars of waste and not billions to actually make one of these fucking things.
Yeah, the hope is that they'll just kind of kick it down the road long enough that he either dies or is out of office.
There are delays,
whichever comes
or
first,
something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like it's because it's just what does it even matter? I mean, this is a world of fucking hypersonic missiles, and we're talking about aircraft carriers and battleships. Like,
yeah, it's ridiculous. and again, it's that gunboat foreign policy that comes from the turn of the century. All right, I want to close on these two quick snippets of these articles because I think it's hilarious and because it's exactly what we were talking about. Trump is not that bright. Either Stephen Miller is whispering in his ear something that he half remembers at the podium, or he saw it on Fox. This is from CNN. The New York Post.
The New York Post.
Oh, sorry, you go.
Ooh,
you do it.
We should read it at the same time.
We should absolutely not.
The New York Post, one of his favorite publications, seems to have coined Donroe Doctrine about a year ago. The paper put words on the cover on January 8, 2025, when Trump's ambitions for Greenland were in the news. I didn't realize that it came from the Post. I thought that he actually said it himself.
Yeah.
The alliterative phrase gradually worked its way into geopolitical conversations. This is terrible writing. You don't need to say something's alliterative when it's fucking alliterative.
It's also CNN. I don't know what kind of writers they have over there.
And it came up on Fox News the day before the strike. Griff Jenkins.
That's a made-up name if I ever heard one.
Oh my God. Why is that guy not a AAA baseball player?
But in the 30s.
Yeah, Griff Jenkins mentioned it on Fox and Friends, one of Trump's favorite shows, Friday morning.
And then this is from the New York Times.
On a spring night in the Oval Office, equally shitty writing.
Uh-huh.
President Trump asked Secretary of State Marco Rubio how to get tougher on Venezuela on a spring night. It was balmy. It was just before Memorial Day.
His hair billowed in the wind coming through the... All right.
Marco Rubio looked at Donald Trump with wanton eyes.
As he considered lustfully, and he licked his cocaine-addled lips.
It was just before Memorial Day, and anti-leftist Cuban-American lawmakers whose votes Mr. Trump needed for his signature domestic policy bill were urging him to tighten a vice on Venezuela by stopping Chevron's oil operations there. But Mr. Trump did not want to lose the only U.S. foothold in Venezuela's oil industry, where China is the biggest foreign player. The president was considering allowing Chevron to continue, but he told Mr. Rubio, a longtime hawk on Venezuela and Cuba, that they had to show the lawmakers and other doubters they could bring the hammer down on Nicolas Maduro, the leftist autocratic leader of Venezuela, whom Mr. Trump had tried to oust in his first term. This is legitimately shitty writing.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, oh my God, just say the people's names, the longtime hawk on Venezuela, leftist autocratic leader. Another aide in the room, Stephen Miller, said he had ideas. Oh, this is painful. As Mr. Trump's Homeland Security advisor, he had been talking with other officials about Mr. Trump's campaign vow to bomb fentanyl labs. For various reasons, that notion had faded, and in recent weeks, Mr. Miller had turned to exploring attacks on boats suspected of carrying drugs off the shores of Central America. Sounds like a Miller idea. Miller's deliberations had not focused on Venezuela, which does not produce fentanyl, But three separate policy goals began merging that night: crippling Maduro, using military force against drug cartels, and securing access to Venezuela's vast oil reserves for U.S. companies. I mean,
There
thank
it
you, New York
is.
Times. You literally could have just written that last part of that last sentence, pretty much says everything we needed to hear. Three separate policy goals. You know, we didn't need to hear about the spring night.
The sensuous night as his button slowly opens up. All right. Well,
The air conditioning was broken in the White House that evening from overuse. Donald Trump is perpetually warm. A bead of sweat made its way down the cheek of Stephen Miller's face, taking with it an ample amount of hair dye.
his empty, dead eyes, as though you couldn't tell it, were also lustfully looking.
I told you, everybody, I told you I was writing something.
All right, let's cap it there.
All right. Yes, that's a good place to leave it. I mean, there's plenty more to talk about with Venezuela, and there's also plenty more to learn in the coming days about about the details of this attack, because it suspiciously went off very smoothly.
Very
And
suspiciously.
that I don't think that I feel comfortable chalking that up to Hegseth's competence.
No.
I really don't, with his fucking vest. And did you see the shot, the screen, the photos they took from the Situation Room during this
No.
attack, where they had up on the screen behind them, like on this
Oh, yeah, I
big
did see
fucking
those, yes,
wall-sized
uh-huh.
screen, they had just like they had clearly it was just like
Are
looking
they in
at
a
Twitter.
tent?
No, they were looking at Twitter on the screen, and they had clearly
Yeah.
you can make it out at the top that they had searched for just single word Venezuela.
Incredible.
Like I don't chalk it up to the competence of the Secretary of War, you know, like
Yeah, that's how he's finding
So-
it on a map. He was Googling it before the raid.
absolutely. And I think that you know, we're gonna find out more details about like inside, you know, operations and like who they paid off and managed to buy out and whatever, including potentially Delcy Rodriguez. I mean, who knows? And Maduro's
and
son.
the
you know?
incredible bio tracking and AI that they use to track him.
We're going to learn a lot more in the coming weeks, I'm sure, about this. And that is the most disheartening thing about this entire story, is that it actually went over well, which
Yeah.
is going to do nothing but embolden them to do it again somewhere else. This
Yep.
is not the last we've heard of it. 2026 might be the year of fucking presidential kidnappings, for all we know. You know, like
America is good while it lasted. Good run.
I don't. But it wasn't though. It was never good. Like
Well,
this
when
has
was
never
it?
been a good place.
When was it great? That's the.
It was never. It's never. I mean, it's always been terrible, and now it's just blatantly terrible. So, all right, that's it for this one, everybody. Thank you, of course, for listening, and you know, and thank you, subscribers, for subscribing. Tell people about it. That's the best thing you can do to help support the show. If you're already a subscriber, you can't afford to be one. Is to talk about it, share it on social media, and you know, like spread the word a little bit. We would love to continue growing the show, and it's heartening to us. You know,
Absolutely.
new subscribers is our version of presidential kidnappings. It makes us feel good.
Yeah.
You know, though. So do it more. You know?
The kidnappings or the subscribing?
Both. No, just the subscribing.
Oh, good.
I'm Nicolas Maduro. I hope you're doing okay. If you're hearing this.
Good luck, Nick.
We'll see you next time.
Later, skaters.
This isn't a country like where you have to travel 24 hours in an airplane. This is Venezuela. It's in our area, the Don Road Doctrine.
So is that what you would say, that we're in the business of nation building now?
We're in the business of having countries around us that are viable and successful, and where the oil is allowed to freely come out, because that's good. It gets the prices down. That's good for our country. Now, we have a very sick neighbor. Colombia is very sick too, run by a sick man. who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you. Mexico has to get their act together because they're pouring through Mexico, and we're going to have to do something. We'd love Mexico to do it. They're capable of doing it. But unfortunately, the cartels are very strong. Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out. But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about it.